This is Arise America.
Now we begin in Buffalo, New York, where the President and First Lady are visiting the families of those killed in a mass shooting on Saturday. The Bidens laid flowers at a memorial outside Tops Friendly Market where the shooting took place. 10 people were killed and 3 others wounded. Officials have described it as a racially motivated attack and say the suspect, 18-year-old Peyton Gendron, is a white supremacist. Well, let's bring in Arise International Correspondent Faith Orr, who is in New York. Faith, good to see you. Obviously, as you reported yesterday, it was unclear at one point whether the President would be able to visit because of his busy schedule, but he was there today. Can you talk us through his visit?
Yes, so President Joe Biden and First Lady Jill Biden, they landed in Buffalo around 9:30 this morning to honour the victims of Saturday's shooting. Now, they actually travelled with New York Senator Chuck Schumer. They were met by the Governor, Kathy Hochul, as well as Buffalo Mayor Byron Brown. New York Attorney General Letitia James, she was also part of that visit. This was the most lethal racist attack since Biden took office. Now, their first stop, as to be expected, was at the memorial, which is outside of the market where the shooting took place. 10 people were killed on Saturday. The President and First Lady, they laid flowers, they spoke to some people. They also then went on to meet privately with families of the victims, with first responders who were involved, and with other local officials. The President did then make some public remarks, but his words were of little comfort to the families of the victims. He said there was little he could do about gun control at an executive level. He said he would have to convince Congress to take action and that was not going to be easy. He said that would be very difficult. Now, he also said that the country needs to look in the mirror and face reality. The country has a problem with domestic terror. It's not the first time that he's made comments like these, and he himself said that this is nothing new. The President and First Lady have now left Buffalo. They left around an hour ago.
Now, the President also touched on the replacement theory, which the shooter had included in his manifesto that was found online. Can you tell us more about that?
Yes, so Biden used his time in Buffalo to condemn racism, to condemn white supremacy. He says that the US must reject the lie of replacement theory. Now, just for viewers who aren't too familiar, this is something that's being pushed online by a variety of hate groups, not just the shooter himself. And it is a conspiracy theory. It's called the Great Replacement. And the idea behind it is that non-white individuals are being brought into the United States. They're being brought into other Western nations to replace white voters in order to achieve a political agenda. Now, this is often touted by anti-immigration groups, by white supremacists. They argue that the influx of these immigrants, specifically people of colour, will lead to the extinction of the white race. Now, the suspect, Peyton Gendron, had allegedly said in his manifesto that the decrease in white birth rates was tantamount to a genocide. So Biden did address all of this. And he said that America's diversity is its strength and that the nation must not be distorted by a hateful minority. He says hate will not prevail and that white supremacists will not have the last word. He describes these as forces of hatred and has repeatedly said that confronting these people is why he sought election as president.
Now, obviously since Saturday, we've been hearing from families of the victims as they gradually come to terms with what's happened, including one that found out about the incident actually online. Can you describe what happened there?
Yes, I mean, this is one that's particularly disturbing. The family of Celestine Cheney have spoken out. Now, firstly, we heard from her sister. She was actually at the scene with Celestine, and she said they were on their way out the door of the store when they heard shooting. Now, initially, they actually thought that it was someone setting off firecrackers. The fact that someone might have been on a mass shooting spree just didn't occur to them. Why would it? So they kept moving out the door, but eventually they noticed that everyone else was running back in. So they turned, they went to go back in. Celestine fell, but it wasn't until later that her sister realised she actually wasn't there. So her sister had ran to the back of the store with the other crowd of people. They'd all went out the back door, and it was once she got out there that she realised her sister was missing. Now, Celestine's son spoke out, and what he said was that he first heard about this incident because his daughter had called him and said she had been sent something. She'd been sent a picture of the scene. And about an hour after that, he was then sent the video. We know that the shooter live streamed the whole thing. And this son of the victim was sent this video, and he watched it. And he said he saw his mum being shot. She fell to the ground. The shooter then reloaded, walked over, and shot her again. Understandably, he's just devastated at watching this video and what's happened. And he said it was so strange to not get a knock at the door like one normally would in this situation, where the police come and notify the families. And instead, he watched it all play out online.
Yesterday, we had a guest in on the programme that was saying that the social media networks have to have or take more responsibility, not just the incident where the whole incident was being streamed, but also in this growing issue of racism. And it's not just this Buffalo shooting over the weekend that's been seen as a racist attack. There was another one in California that was a Chinese person against Taiwan. Do you think social media giants are going to have to start, in a way, clamping down on the hatred that is brewing online?
I mean, we've seen these calls being repeated for some time now. One of the most recent officials to call for this was Kathy Hochul, the governor of New York. She says that these ideas are spreading like wildfire online. And this, as you say, this isn't new. This is something that's been happening, particularly we saw on the January 6th, the Capitol, the storming of the Capitol. A lot of that was spread online. A lot of this hatred is stirred up online. These conspiracy theories are spread. And in this case, this 180-page manifesto that the shooter posted online, which calls for racial hatred, which espouses his ideas that white population is dwindling. And we're seeing lots and lots of the public demanding change. So a lot of mothers, I saw them on Twitter, for instance, mothers are saying to each other, if you have a teenager, particularly a boy, and they're playing games, or they're using Twitch, or they're using Reddit, monitor what they're looking at, because you can almost guarantee that some sort of white supremacist group is trying to groom them. And that is a really disturbing figure, that simply because a teenage boy is online, he's going to be faced with all of these things. But we know how easy it is. If you're on a platform like Twitter, you're scrolling through, you click on a couple of things, and you come across something that it can be quite shocking. It can be, whether it's hatred, or whether it's some sort of pornography, or whether it's some other inappropriate content that just shouldn't really be so visible to such a large audience that you can just stumble across, And that is the problem with this, is that it's so easy for these ideas to spread. As I said, the governor described it as frankly disturbing that this is happening. And she's called on all the CEOs of all of the platforms to take action now.
And Faith, as you said yesterday, whenever there's a mass shooting, the debate of gun control always returns. You're on the ground in New York. Are people talking about it, or is it now sadly become a way of life in the US that these atrocities will happen?
There does actually seem to be a sort of shock, certainly, but almost a general acceptance that these guns are everywhere now, and trying to get rid of them is nigh on impossible. Were the US going to take action about this, it should have been done years ago, before the proliferation became so widespread and before so many incidents had happened. A lot of people you speak to say, well, if they didn't ban guns after Sandy Hook, when are they going to do it? But this was the 198th in Buffalo. It was the 198th mass shooting in the US so far this year. A mass shooting is 4 or more people have been shot, not including the perpetrator. Now, there was another 2 mass shootings in the next 24 hours after Buffalo. That is how frequently sometimes these occur, as well as individual incidents. On top of that, we saw incidents in the Bronx at the weekend, for instance, and other parts of New York State. And it's because some states will make an effort, they will crack down. You know, New York has banned certain parts of ammunition, the one used in this attack, for instance, which is so deadly, but Pennsylvania, it's still available, the next state over. So even if efforts are made statewide, it's not enough, because it's still easy enough for people just to travel and pick up whatever they need. And that is why this is such a deadly combination. But as I say, you know, there are still demands for change, especially when an incident like this happens. But generally, when you speak to people, there is a sort of reluctant acceptance that it's going to be very difficult, if not impossible.
And Faith, before you go, looking forward on Thursday, I understand the suspect is going to be in court. What's likely to happen?
Yes, so there is another court appearance on Thursday. The suspect did appear in court already on Sunday, where he was charged with first-degree murder. He pled not guilty to those charges. So he will appear again on Thursday. He is being held on bail. He's been refused bail, he's been held in custody at the moment. And so this is just a follow-up appearance to that. He is not expected to be released. He is still expected to be remanded, and it's just part of the proceedings before we get to trial. Now, we do know that he was under medical supervision. Peyton Gendron, this 18-year-old white man from Conklin in New York State, he was under medical supervision, and there are questions being raised as to why authorities didn't see this coming and didn't stop it. And it's because although this was the first attack he'd carried out, it wasn't the first time that he'd threatened to do something like this. He had threatened a shooting at his school last year, his school in Conklin. And so there are all of these questions from officials about why he wasn't stopped sooner, and there are demands for those changes to be made as well.
Well, Faith, we'll have to leave it there, but thank you very much indeed for your analysis this evening. Faith Orr, Arise International Correspondent in New York.
This is Arise America.